Today's the day. We're going to reveal our all Shoresy team.
We are?
Well, I've got some names for you. I've done the homework.
I've already given you 4 names. I've already given you 4 names.
We'll add them to it, and then we'll have a little debate after we catch up with Scotty Bowman in just a little bit. I look forward to chatting with Scotty because the weaves and the bobs and the twists and the turns in the conversation take you in different places, but always fascinating.
You know, there is no better historian in the game than a guy who is at the top of the list with his coaching record. Nobody. You know, and actually, you know, there's so many things to talk about. I'm sure I'll forget 3 things to ask him because I'll get so drenched in some of the stories that he's going to tell. And we wanted to have Scotty on to talk about a couple of events, the passing of the great Glenn Hall, and then the Red Wings finally paying tribute to Sergei Fedorov. But there's 50 more things. Like, for instance, one of his former players is coaching his 1900 game tonight, Lindy Ruff. I mean, we got to ask him about Lindy Ruff.
Well, the challenge will be getting there because
I know.
Like, how many people can cover off an 80 to 90 year span of our game, like, and have credibility?
Well, but that speaks to, you know, Scotty's tenure, not just at the NHL level, but his tenure working within the Montreal system long before that, and then leaving the Montreal system because he's not going to get a chance to coach there. Toe Blake is the coach and is going to coach for a little while longer. And so Scotty had an opportunity, had to go to St. Louis to get that chance. And he went to St. Louis, Daren, not as the coach. He went to St. Louis as the assistant general manager. And there were 2 assistant general managers for Lynn Patrick, Cliff Fletcher and Scotty Bowman.
And then it just wrote its own history,
didn't it? It did. Well, and
for those that don't know, when he went to St. Louis, there was the expansion, and all the established teams, the original 6, were in one division, and all the expansion teams, the new clubs, were in another division, right. And they met in the final.
The only time they met was during the Stanley Cup final, and of course, the first 3 years of the Stanley Cup final, Montreal, Boston. Scotty's St. Louis Blues were the constant. They never won a game in those 3 series.
But they were 3-time champions of the expansion league. Really?
Correct. Yeah, correct. Yeah, that's right. So, but Scotty's a great storyteller. He tells it with such passion, and really, in many ways, likes to engage you or me in part of the conversation too, which makes it fun.
Remember Sergei Fedorov's Nike skates? The white skates?
Yeah. There's lots of things. Sergei Fedorov, in many ways, when you think of the great players of the 90s, how Fedorov got to North America, how he dominated on the ice so many ways, how the Red Wings won championships. Sergei Fedorov was an unbelievable star in this league and never really got very much or as much credit outside of Detroit for being that star.
To be honored by the Red Wings, almost too handsome for Team Shoresy. Fedorov with almost that flowing
What do you mean
hair.
Almost? He's not on Team Shoresy. It's not Team Shoresy, by the way. It's all Shoresy team, not Team Shoresy. There's only one group. This is my lesson for the day. Okay, you ready? There's only one group that puts the word team in front of the name. There's only one. Team Canada. That's it. It's not Team USA. It's not Team Sweden. It's Team Canada. We have.
What do you call Sweden?
Tre Corner. Swedish national team. Swedish Olympic team. Though that's the. I mean, go check USA Hockey's website. Not once did they say Team USA. It's the U.S. Olympic team.
Yeah, but you can't say that during a game. Like,
just say USA. Here comes USA. Everybody's got lazy because now everybody thinks it's team this. And you think now it's team Shorzy. It's not team Shorzy. It's the all Shorzy team. Because there's only
100% hockey. We'll chat with Scotty Bowman. Take that.
Team Bowman.
Millard and Shannon. We're on separate teams, I can tell you that. Scotty's on the other side. Next.
NHL TV is now on DAZN. Hockey lives here.
Here we go.
Watch every game from every team. The best players in the world. And the coldest plays on ice. Watch up to 4 games at once for the ultimate NHL experience. Sign up now at DAZN.
Follow 100% Hockey on YouTube, Amazon, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. It's the best place to just subscribe.
Don't forget our
Apple as well. Yeah, definitely. There's so many that you can't miss it. Here's Scotty Bowman, who doesn't miss a thing when it comes to the National Hockey League. Do you watch games every single night still?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Well, I mean, there's some nights it's only one game, but that's okay. But every night, yeah.
How caught up in the Olympic roster release were you?
Well, I don't. I mean, I just know. I read what it's on I don't talk to anybody about it, but yeah, it's exciting for the players, obviously, and there was a lot of controversy about who is going to be. I guess they have a reserve list too, and it's pretty exciting for the players, obviously. But if they don't get named, they still have a chance. But then you got to hope that somebody gets injured, and you don't like to do that, I don't think,
Do you ever look back and wonder if you should have gone to the Olympics, given the opportunity?
I only offered once.
98, right?
I think it was 98. I'm pretty sure, yeah. And I forget what happened. It wasn't as organized as it is now. I don't think. I mean, as far as recruiting and stuff like that. But everybody gets involved now. There's I don't know how many people, 4 or 5 with each team, maybe.
More than that. Gosh, when you look at the management teams and then the coaching staff, my goodness gracious, you have to have a meeting to go to the washroom.
Yeah.
So you were offered a position in 1998? I didn't realize that.
Yeah, I was going to go, and then something. Oh, I know what it was. It was I had knee surgery.
Oh,
that's right. I had to have knee surgery, and I kind of postponed it, and then I had to get it. I had to get my knee replaced, and I just didn't feel comfortable. I needed. It's a lot different now. I think I had both knees. I had one knee done that time, and I had one knee done about 7 years ago, and it's a lot different now. I mean, you still have to do rehab, but it's not as invasive as it was like 30, nearly 30 years ago.
No.
Would you have phoned down and put Gretzky in the shootout?
No, that was controversial, but.
So one of the reasons we wanted to talk to you today was one of your good friends, one of the best goaltenders of all time, passed away, Glenn Hall. You will forever be linked to him because of your time in St. Louis, more so than anything. Were you part of that group that convinced Glenn to come and play just one more year?
Well, he had a contract with the Hawks. It was unusual. He had a two-year contract when we got him. 1 year, he had 1 year left on the contract, $35,000, and which was quite high at the time. Most of the players that we got were making 15 or 20 because they were in the minor. Like there's only 3 of them playing in the NHL, and they were extra. They were like third line players, or it wasn't very much available. So when we got him, we called him up, and he gave us the barn story about we didn't care about training camp. We just wanted. Well, I think we trained about a month in those days,
Wow.
And but we didn't have him for the first 2 weeks. He agreed to come and finish out the 1 year. It was the second year that after he won the Conn Smythe Trophy, of course, and what a year that he had as a goalie. I mean, I can go back to so many games, and even in the playoffs, beating Philadelphia in the seventh game, and then playing in seventh game in second overtime against Minnesota, and then he wanted to retire, and I don't think it was he was pretty serious because the owner of the team, Sid Solomon, his son was quite an amateur golfer in the U.S. And the Canadian Amateur was in Edmonton at the time, at the Mayfair Golf Club. So it was kind of like a combination. We went out together. He said, we got to go try to sign him. It would be in July, I think. So because we had been talking back and forth, and he wasn't sure if he wanted to come back. And of course, we were so anxious to get him back, and we went to the golf tournament, but Sid the third wasn't doing too well the first day, and he said, "Let's get out of here. We got business to do." So we got in his rental car, and we drove up the path looking for the barn. Of course, he didn't have the barn. He was sitting on his veranda with a rocking chair and waiting for us, and we had already called him. And then we got to be able to sign him, and we signed him. We signed him for, it was always 1 year with Glenn, and that was the year that we had also drafted in the interleague draft Jacques Plante, because he announced his return to the NHL. So that we talked about that, and we hadn't signed Jacques Plante either, but we gave a good contract to both of them, and what a move that was. We had 2 great years together, but with Glenn, I think he felt pretty comfortable the fact that the first year he played I think he played out of the 74, he played about maybe 55 games. And the next year he played 38 or 39. Or he and Jacques kind of alternated, and we had a third goalie, Ernie Wakely. But yeah, we got both of them signed, and what a splendid year the next year was. I mean, we had 13 shutouts. Glenn had 7, and Jacques had 6, and we had 21 one-goal games. We had 34 games if we got a point. If we got 1 goal, we got a point because there's no overtime.
Right.
But they were well rested, and they didn't have to play back to back. It was quite a season for us. I think that we led the entire 12 teams in goals against, a little over 2 goals per game. No team had done that for quite a while. Detroit had a terrific year, 1952. When that would be Terry Sawchuk's greatest year. That's the year they won 8 straight in the playoffs. Never had a goal scored on them in the 4 home games. They gave up 131 goals in 70 games, not even 2 a game. But we were pretty close. We gave up 157 goals in 74 games. So we were a defensive team, but we had the goaltending.
You could never understand why Chicago made him available. I mean, I was a kid. I was a teen. I was in my early teens, and following the expansion. And I thought it was the coolest thing. And then, I mean, Glenn Hall was Chicago.
Well, he was going to be 36. His birthday's in October, so turning in 67, he would have been turning 36. And Dennis Ajordi had a terrific junior career with St. Catharines. They were always a strong team, and that was probably the reason that the Hawks started to really develop a good team, because they finally got players back-to-back years, Makita and Hull, out of the Blackhawks and out of St. Catharines, and right. I think. Wait a minute, did Phil Esposito? He might have played there too. I'm not sure, but they had a lot of players. It was just a pipeline. Elmer Vasco and a lot of good players. So really, I could see the teams had 2 goalies, and they thought that Dennis was going to take over, but it never happened.
What sweetened the pot to get Glenn to come back?
I think the fact that he had such a great year, the year before, we got in the finals against Montreal. We lost the four games, but two of them in overtime, and they won the Conn Smythe. And he really enjoyed the team. I mean, he liked the players we had. He got along with. We had a very family type atmosphere. The owners were very gracious. He had played in Chicago with Al Arbor, and we got Al. He was playing captain out of Rochester, and so both of them actually threatened to retire before they even came. Al Arbor was another player that didn't come to training camp, and he was considering retiring, and we offered him a really big contract, which we were happy to do. And he came and played through more than the contract. So I think he just enjoyed life in St. Louis. The Solomons had a farm, and they allowed him to live on the farm, and it was a great change for him to come to a team that his career between Detroit and Chicago with Tommy Ivan, he battled for contracts all the time. I think the fact that it was pretty seamless when we went to see him. We had an open checkbook really, and second year we gave him 50,000, which was and then we gave Jacques Plante. That was another story. He got 3 years at a hunt for 33, 100,000. So we spent money on goalies, but it paid off.
Now, when you took over coaching the team midway through that first season, would you be? How much would you talk to Glenn? Any at all? I mean, there was no such thing as goalie coaches then.
We had no goalie coaches. I got along. I mean, I was single, and Glenn's oldest, Pat, who I've kept in touch with right now. He's in his early 70s, but Pat was a teenager, maybe 13, 14, and Glenn would bring him down to the ring. He had three other ones later on, but they weren't as old as Pat. And I got to know Pat pretty well, and he used to come out after there was no hockey in St. Louis, and Pat used to come out. Yeah, I think he might have played hockey, and he's born in Detroit. He was born in Detroit around 1952, and Glenn was there. And he came, and I don't think we had a lot of youth hockey, but he could skate in that. So he came out. His dad would come down to the rink. We didn't have a lot of morning skates. We never skated in the morning. And he'd come out and he'd go on the ice, and I would go on with maybe a couple of players that were injured or something, and we got to know each other pretty well. And we had a family atmosphere in St. Louis. Every Monday, we used to go watch films at movies before they even come out at the Solomon residence. We had a lot of players that some were married, but they didn't have their families there yet. So we got a really close group.
Movie time with Scotty Bowman. That's pretty cool.
Well, we used to go to his house and watch movies before they come out. But the wildest story about Glenn would have been the first year we got in the playoffs. We did beat Philadelphia in 7 games in Philly, and then we were playing Minnesota, and we got whipped in Game 6. We got whipped about 5-1. And now we're coming home. Of course, we got Game 7 a couple of days later. I think we had 2 days between the 6th and 7th games. And so we're walking on the tarmac. We had, in those days in the playoffs, we did take airplanes most of the time. We took trains during the season. It was pretty easy to get to a lot of places. But Glenn grabbed me and said, what do you think for tomorrow night or for the 7th game? And I said, well, what do you mean? He said, well, I'm really struggling. He said, I'm worried about my eyes. I'm worried about my reflexes. I didn't have it tonight. Well, I mean, he was 2 years older than me too, and I was more. I was really, I said, well, gee, Glenn, I said, Seth Martin's only played 20 games. and he was a goalie. He was a good backup for us, but he only played about 20 games in that regular season. So, anyways, we had just brought up for the seventh game of the first round, Doug Harvey. He was our playing coach in Kansas City. So I got along, but Doug was helping me a lot, even coach it and playing too. And I went to Doug and I told him the story. I said, "What do you think?" No. He said, "Don't. He'll be fine." He said, "Are you going to practice tomorrow?" And I said, "Not really, but we." He said, "Well, why don't we bring out? I like to go and skate a little bit." And he said, "I'll ask him to come out." Well, before we did that, I convinced him to come with me to the hospital, and our team doctor had an office there, and he had an eye test which was perfect. He was 20/20. He did a reflex test, and his legs were bouncing off the table. And doctor told him, he said, "You have the reflexes of a 20-year-old." Well, he was getting pretty satisfied, but I was satisfied. So he's going to play game 7. But just as the warm-up was starting, he grabbed me and said, "Are you going to watch the warm-up?" to me. And I said, "No, I don't watch the warm-ups." But he said, "Well, you better watch it." He said, I just don't feel comfortable anymore. So I didn't know what to do, and I didn't watch it very long. And I mean, my mind was made up of for sure. So we got back in the dressing room, and then he grabbed me again, and he said, "Did you watch the warm-up?" I said, "No." He said, "Well," he said, "I'm struggling. I'm still struggling. I just want you to know that if I struggle, get me out of there. I don't want, if I'm not playing, I don't want to hurt the team." Well, I was panicking myself, so I looked around. This was a funny story. I couldn't, Doug. I wanted to see Doug. I leaned on Doug a lot. So Doug he wasn't at his stall. I went in the bathroom and the washroom, and sure enough, Glenn's on the toilet. He's really bringing up everything, and I looked for Doug, and he's having a shave about 10 minutes before the game. I said, "Doug, I have to speak to you." I said, Glenn just told me, the goalie just told me again, keep your eye on me tonight." And he said, "Scotty, I'll keep both eyes on him, but don't worry, he'll be fine." He said he'll be good. And we played Minnesota. Mm-hmm. We won the game 2-1 in the second overtime. Ron Schock scored a beautiful goal. Cesar Maniego was their goalie. Glenn had 54 shots, stopped 53, and Maniego had 55 and stopped 50. He stopped 53. He let in 2, but one was a breakaway. Mm-hmm. That was the Glenn Hall story.
I'll tell you what, I that game and the Schock goal is one of my first memories of watching hockey on television.
Yeah, but it was midnight.
Yeah, it was. Oh, yeah. Well, I grew up on the West Coast, so it was a little earlier than that. But I still remember. And then, of course, Cesar, Glenn was Glenn Hall. Cesar Maniego was a BC boy, so there was a little bit more, bit more at stake for some of us. And Cesar had that. They both had the butterfly style, but Cesar had that lean back style, particularly on breakaways. And Ron Schock knew that and scored the goal. That was a hell of a series.
Yeah, he was a big guy, Caesar's. I'd say 6'4" maybe at that time.
Yeah. By the way, Phil Esposito played 1 year in St. Catharines for the Teepees.
Yeah, they had a lot of players.
Yeah.
How did you decide between Jacques and Glenn?
Well, it was another story. We signed Jacques Plante, and Jacques, Lynn Patrick and I talked to Jacques, and then Jacques came in. He got knee surgery at the end of June. He had to get a cartilage taken out of his knee after we had got him in the draft. So we brought him down it would be probably early August. It was about 5 or 6 weeks after the surgery, and he was doing fine. And we brought him down on a Saturday, and we started talking contract to him. And the owner, Mr. Solomon, very seldom did what he came in on that Saturday, and he had heard all about Jacques Plante. So Jacques went upstairs to the owner, and Lynn Patrick and I were just discussing how we were going to sign him. And the owner came down, and alone, and he said, I've got a deal on the table for Jacques, and he said, I want to do it. And so we said, what is it? He said, we've been talking for an hour. He's a wonderful hockey guy. 3 years at 33,000, 100,000 for 3 years. And Lynn and I looked at each other. We said, no. We said, look, he's 40 years old. We can't give him 3 years. I mean, you can't do it. And he said, I pretty well told him that that's what we're going to do. And I said, but he said, look, guys, don't worry about it. He said, don't worry about it. We said, well, you might only be able to play a year or two at the most. But he was such a wonderful man. He knows. He said, don't worry about it, because he said, if he can't play, we'll put him on TV. He's that good. He knows that much about hockey. So we both said, well, you're the owner. But so that's a true story. So we kept him for 2 years, and then we sent him to Toronto the third year because we were trying to get younger. And then he had a great year with the Leafs. And Jacques played three more. He played 3 years.
Well, and in fact, I would say that the influence he had on so many goaltenders, including Bernie Parent, who was his partner in Toronto.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, to this day, Plante is known as one of the great teachers of the game. So,
well, Jacques asked us what our plans were, and we said, well, we plan on playing both of you. He said, well, until I get going, could I play the West Division at home? And I said, well, wait a minute now. Glenn's not going to play the East. The East. Who's going to play against the East? Because the East was much stronger. Well, we had another goalie, Ernie Wakely.
Yeah.
So he said, well, Ernie could play the East on the road, and Glenn could play the East. He was giving me who was going to play. I said, I don't want to get involved in that. But we didn't do anything like that. But they both played. The famous game that we got into, both of them. Well, what I started halfway through the year, though, is that we had a Saturday night game at home and a Sunday night game in New York. So I actually sent Glenn to New York on Saturday in the morning, and Jacques played Saturday night in home, and Ernie, it wasn't Ernie Wakely then. We sent him down, and we had a young guy named
Ted Wimet.
No, Robbie Irons.
Robbie Irons too, yeah.
Robbie Irons, yeah. And Robbie Irons is the goalie that dressed in New York when Glenn, for the only time in his career, he got upset with the referee, Vern Buffy, and they scored on Glenn. Vic Hadfield scored a goal from center ice that took a dip. And then we got a penalty, and then he gave, and Glenn came out of the net and started to scream at Buffy, and Buffy threw him out of the game. He gave him a game misconduct, and so that's the story. So Robbie Irons was coming in off the bench, and Doug again came to me, and I got all the flack, but Doug said, Scotty, we don't want him in the net, do we? I said, well, no, not really, but we have to. He said, well, no, the goalies were allowed to warm up, and he got the goalie to take a dive, and then we had to call Jacques Plante from the press box. And we were losing that game 1-0, and Jacques wasn't popular in New York, and he took his time. I don't know, he must have taken 20 minutes plus. He came down, he put his stuff on. We won the game 3-1, and of course, I got in a lot of flack. Emil was running it down the bench, and Emil and I were good friends. Say, I'm going to get you suspended for the league, but they changed. I think it might have changed the rule that you couldn't do that.
The original e-bug was Jacques Plante.
Yeah. Oh, and how did Hall and Plante get along?
Jacques was a quiet guy. He was, he didn't do very much with socializing with anybody, but they got along fine. They got along because they were both good goalies. I mean, they were great, both great goalies. I think they both appreciated the fact that they would only play in the mid 30 games, 37, 38 games, and no, they were fine.
They didn't want to play every game, despite coming from an era where they did.
No. Yeah, they wanted to play at one time, but Glenn always wanted to play if he was playing well. That was his theory. As long as I'm playing well, I want to play. But he even like I kept up with Glenn forever. Even in my last few conversations with him, I went to see him. I brought Stan because he's named after him. His second name is Glenn. Stanley after the cup, and then Glenn, and I brought him out there when I went to game one of the finals last year. We went out to visit Glenn, and he was in a retirement home, but his son Pat brought him with his other brother Les, and they brought him back to the farm, and we had a long conversation. We stayed there 2.5 hours, and he could remember everything about St. Louis Blues. He loved it. He loved our team. He really was a true St. Louis Blue fan and everything.
It was an amazing time, because that whole concept of expanding the league, doubling the teams, and then letting the 6 expansion teams be in the same division and guarantee them a place in the Stanley Cup final.
That was Clarence Campbell's idea of expanding, that we won't give them a lot. They didn't give the teams a lot for they played. They got in the league for $2 million. That was the franchise fee, but the problem was, John, Al Leader. The story that I got later on, but I knew it from Lynn Patrick. Al Leader tried very hard to get the Western Hockey League. He was a bright guy, and I would say the mid-'60s, around 63 or 64, he went to visit Montreal, and he wanted to become the Western arm of the NHL. Mm-hmm. And the NHL was now surviving because the Chicago had really come out of the doldrums in the 50s, and they were really drawing sellout crowds. Bobby Hull and Makita, they won the cup in 61, and they did not want any part of expansion. James Norris did not want to expand. He said, "We're doing fine. Let's keep it like this." And I think they were thinking of it, but they were fearful of the rival league. They were always fearful of the Western Hockey League. It was a good league. It had good cities too. Mm-hmm. It had Los Angeles, it had San Francisco, Portland. So, they were concerned. I think that's why they expanded in 67. They said, we better be careful here. Of course, 72, the World Hockey did start another league, but they didn't. They put us on a side, and Campbell's idea was they're going to compete with each other. We'll give them the first year. We only had a home and home, and some of the teams were struggling. So we brought it on ourselves. I mean, the Western Division said, "Look, we got to get more games with the East," and it was hard to beat the East. I mean, if you take the record of the Eastern and Western teams against each other for the first 2 years at least, it wasn't good. And but that was to draw some crowds and get some attendance.
In fact, I remember, Scotty, and you can tell me if I was wrong. I know you will. Minnesota played Montreal, I think, in 1972 in the playoffs. And the North Stars took them, won a game. And it was the first time in NHL history that an expansion team won a playoff game against one of the 6 pre-expansion teams.
Yeah, I've always said, like, looking at history, it's just been amazing. Like, 'cause I know what it was like for 4 years in the Western Division. No entry draft of any consequence. All the good players were on the lists. All the junior players that they had on sponsored teams were untouchable. So the first draft that the Western teams had that was wide open was 1969, and we started in 67. Yeah. So we did not get access to any good amateur players. And I don't know how we kept going, but the amazing thing I've always said is what Philadelphia Flyers did starting in 67 and then about 8 or 9 years later, winning 2 Stanley Cups in a row. It's mind-boggling that they would be able to do that, because the first 3 or 4 years, we didn't get any players. The first 3 or 4 years, we were just trading among each other. It was hard to get any young players till 1969. and Philadelphia winning those two cups in such a small sample size. It's amazing.
Did you celebrate winning the West like you'd won a championship?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. We won the seventh game on a Friday night in second overtime, the game John was mentioning about Ron Schock, and we started the Stanley Cup final. We were given the home games, the first two, on Sunday afternoon. We had a big party Friday night. I looking back, I said, boy, that was we had a lot of adrenaline flowing for the Sunday game. We got beat, but I think it might have gone into overtime. I'm not sure, but we had to start right away. But no, we and then of course our owners brought the entire organization, all the players, coaches, training staff. We went. They had a resort in Florida, Hollywood, Florida, right near Fort Lauderdale. They had a hotel. They owned a hotel with Stan Musial and another athlete, and they brought us, and they brought everybody there after the finals, which we didn't win a game in, for 10 days. We were the first team that did that.
Wow.
They weren't the ownership group was not really accepted much by the rest of the other owners.
No.
Because we also had music. We were one of the few. Maybe Chicago had a little bit, but we had a lot of music in our building. We had an organist, Norm Kramer, who was famous, and he would get the crowd going and playing the St. Louis Blues song. We had fans singing and everything. It was a real history lesson for people in hockey.
By the way, the Stanley Cup final ended that year, May 8th, or May 11th, rather. May 11th.
Is that right? Oh,
yeah.
It's only 12 teams. That's the way it goes then.
Right.
We'll fast forward a few years and reflect on Sergei Fedorov when we return on 100% Hockey with Millard and Shannon chatting with Scotty Bowman. Big night happening in Detroit. Covering off the years of Sergei Fedorov. Do you remember the first time that you heard his name, Scotty?
The first time would be he was there the year before I went to Detroit, and he was that's the first time I ever heard. Well, I knew that he played with McGillney and Bure with the juniors. I mean, they were the next coming of the Russian Five. I don't know who the defensemen were on that crew, juniors, but I didn't know much about him. I got to Detroit, and he'd played 1 year, and Brian Murray had been the coach, and they got in the playoffs, and he was a defensive type player his first year. Like, I don't even remember what his record was, but he was an unusual Russian player in that they weren't known for checking. They were known for, moving the puck. That was their type of defense. But Sergei he was a terrific two-way player. And at the beginning, the Red Wings used him a lot in a defensive type of role, because they already had, I don't know who else they would have had at center beside Yzerman, but Steve would be the offensive leader, and Sergei was used to play against other teams' best centermen.
And then he played some defense too.
Well, he played briefly for about 6 weeks. We had 2 injuries.
Yeah,
and I did it for 2 reasons. One, it was always difficult in Detroit to keep him the minutes, because we already, when we had Yzerman and Fedorov, and Draper was a great defensive player, and we had Larionov, we had 4 centermen, and obviously we moved them at times. We moved different ones on the wing, but we didn't have Sergei's dad, Victor, was a youth coach, and he was always around, and he was kind of. Sergei never said a word, but he was always looking at the score sheet for the 20 minutes. And sometimes he never got 20 minutes. He got 18, 19, 17. And so I didn't know what to do. We had two good defensemen. I'm not recalling who they were. They were going to be injured for about a month. And then it was I did it for two reasons. One, that I said, look, this is going to give you a lot more ice time. Maybe give you like you could help us play defense if you want to try it. He had no problem. He had no problem. I mean, I often talk to different people, and I remember a conversation I had later on with Wayne Gretzky. Saw at some event, and we were talking, and he was a big Sergei Fedorov fan, huge. And he, we were talking about him, and he said, Scotty, it's amazing what he did. He said, myself, I could never even try defense. Neither could Mario. And he also said, and neither could a guy like Yager. But he said the transformation that he went from forward to defense seamlessly and played like an all-star. He said that shows you what kind of what he thought of him as a player, two-way. And Sergei was that way. I mean, he battled Wayne one year for the scoring title when they were both in their prime. But it wasn't easy for him in Detroit because Steve was the guy, and he'd been there 10 years before Sergei, and then we got the other Russians coming in. But he was a super player. I mean, he was so big and strong, much bigger than people realized. His legs were strong. He had an upper body, and he was always very fit. He could play. He could play endlessly. He never got tired, and he had been well trained by the Russian system as well.
Coachable? Was he coachable?
Yeah, he was. He was an introvert. He wasn't. He never was concerned about much. He never worried about anything. He just played, and he never complained. I never had any issues with him at all. I leaned on him to play a lot of good hockey. And my last year, we made a line of he and Fedorov, Yzerman and Shannon. They carried us to another cup. I mean, we had a great team, but they were really good. Those three, they could play against anybody. But Sergei was a centerman, even with the Russian five. Igor, like we moved Igor. Didn't matter what position they lined up, but Igor lined up on the right wing. But Sergei was a great face-off guy. He was really his face-off percentage would have been extremely high.
The other part of it was that if you remember, Scotty, you were really involved in this, was when he got the offer sheet from Carolina.
Oh, yeah.
That changed a lot of people's attitudes in Detroit about Sergei Fedorov, didn't it?
Yeah, I remember when it happened because the compensation was 5 first-round draft picks, and that's a lot in a way, but then when the cooler heads prevailed and they started to look back at the 5 previous years of Carolina, the 5 first-round picks they took, and you got it sounds pretty glamorous to get 5 first-round picks, but in essence, what they got the 5 before that there was no outstanding players. So fortunately, it was very expensive for the Red Wings because the contract was heavily bonused. And Sergei didn't play all the way until February. And boy, he came back in February, and what a playoff. That was our second cup out of the 97-98 twosome. And he played in the playoffs. He was awesome. And it took him a couple of weeks to get going, but we're fortunate that I would say that cup wouldn't have happened if that was a big expensive. I mean, in those days, that kind of money, I'm not sure, John, but it was something like in the 20s, $25 million bonus in April or end of April or something. And the Ellich family, they decided we're gonna keep him.
It paid off.
When you add in the bonus, it might have been the single highest paid player for 1 year.
Yeah, it would be.
Yeah.
I actually thought that number was $35 million.
Well, it was 25 to 35. I
Yeah,
can tell you that.
yeah. It was a lot of money. That actually, that was that same year. That's the same year that the pros went to the Olympics, and so Fedorov's playing for the Russians in Japan at the Olympics, and then comes back and plays for the Red Wings. So that was an amazing time for your hockey club when you think back that how well you guys played in Philly against Philly in '97, and then against Washington in '98 with the sweep.
Yeah, and they're honoring him. I think it took a bit of time because there was some differences, like you said, between the organization and the fact that he did leave and he didn't take I think they had a chance to sign him once more and he didn't re-sign. But it's the Red Wings. They don't. If you look in the history. There's not a lot of players that for years. Even Red Kelly. Red Kelly's his jersey. I was at the retirement for Red. Unfortunately, I couldn't make it for Sergei's tonight, but I did a video for him. But Red Kelly played four cups with the Wings before he went to Toronto for four, and it took a long time for Red got his jersey retired, maybe I would say 2 or 3 years before he passed away. And up to that time, there was only Sawchuk, and it would be Howe and Lindsay and probably Delvecchio and Abel. There's not a lot of for such a successful franchise. I mean that team won first place from 1948 to 1955, 7 years in a row, when Ivan was running the team and coaching, and Adams was a manager. But they won seven first place finishes. They won 4 cups, 50, 52, 54, 55, and then they kind of broke apart after that. They made one little comeback in 64 when Lindsay came back, but historically they've had a lot of players. And they don't have a lot of jerseys up there now, but now they're starting with Nick Lidstrom and Steve Yzerman and Sergei Fedorov.
Sergei had flair. The skates, the hair, the girlfriends. When you were coaching him, did you keep track of all of that?
Anna Kournikova came. She was about 16, and she'd come to our practices. I remember one time we were going to play a trip out west and in Phoenix, and I gave Sergei 2 days to go before us. We had 3 days off, and I gave him permission to go to Phoenix. So I felt, and then I felt pretty good about it because Anna mentioned I would talk to her and say hello to her, and then she was pretty happy. And I saw her one day, maybe it was in Phoenix. And she said, "You're invited to Wimbledon anytime." But I don't know if she ever played there. that was
yeah.
So that does not. Anyways.
So what are you watching these days? Who's striking your fancy in the NHL in 2026?
Colorado's. I don't know if they can. I mean, it's just amazing
your record might be in your record of losses might be in jeopardy.
Well, I mean, all the records are in jeopardy. Boston has the records for wins now, I think, or somebody does. But they, they're pretty well. Everything they've got their goaltending straightened out now. They're moving along. I mean, I don't know. I'm anxious to know what people think, but I've always felt it was so difficult for teams to just go to Colorado and win. And now they haven't. I don't think they've lost a game at home.
No, they haven't. No. Why? Because of the elevation, you mean?
Well, yeah, I'm worried about my Buffalo Bills.
That's where it ties in.
Listen, Daren. Scotty's rivalry with what happens in Colorado. I still remember that playoff series. You traveled your own bench at one point.
The league didn't back us up because our bench was shorter. The backup goalie couldn't even stay on the bench. You had to sit in the very back. I talked to Brian O'Neill about the late Brian O'Neill. Was a good friend of mine. I said, Brian, he said, we'll change it next year. I said, well, we're going to bring the bench. And we didn't. And we never left the bench there because knew somebody would steal it. So we would slide it across the ice.
That was a regular feature on Hockey Night in Canada. Is when's the bench showing up and how are they getting it across the ice?
Yeah, but they were great rivals. I mean, they had Hall of Fame players, and we did. I mean, there's no question about it that whoever could get that series would have a good chance to win the Stanley Cup, and it did prove itself. But no, I mean, you can't tell. There could be a lot of changes this year. You don't know. I don't know if there'll be as many because of the parity. And you start looking at the standings, and it's you're looking at them. We're at game 40 to 45 now,
Mm-hmm.
and there's gaps of hardly any points between 5 and 6 teams. So will those teams? Will they take a chance and move a player or two? That could, I mean, it shouldn't change the regular season as much as, but it could help in the playoffs. You fill a gap and get depth around. I don't know about the West now. The West. I wouldn't discount Tampa because, I mean, this team. I don't know, John, how they find players like they do. It's just a. I mean, there's other teams that have done it, but they didn't have draft picks. And they have names of players that you never hear about these players until they get to the NHL. And that's the one thing with John Cooper. I mean, he's had to bring up players from the minors, and he plays them. He puts them right in the lineup. I mean, their defense core has been really banged up without Hedman and McDonough and Chernak. I mean, ideally that would be probably their top 3. Now they got guys like Radish and these guys that have come on and Moser, and they fill in, and they got forwards too that fill in too. I don't even know some of their names, but they're a team. They're a team that they scare you because the goaltender, when he's been playing pretty healthy this year, he's a factor.
I can make a case and sell you on this is John Cooper's greatest coaching job that he's done in his entire career. Would you buy into that?
Oh yeah, he gets the guys like he's been with a lot of the players like he had Kucherov in the minors. I guess he had a point. He brought those players up and he played them right away. They developed into stars, and now he's they got Hagel in the trade. They got they've made us. They've done a lot, but the organization. Somebody keeps telling me they have a scout in their system, Al Murray or
I don't think Al's there anymore.
No.
I don't think so. No, but he's been there a long time.
Who's the one that's finding all these players? Well, a lot of them are. One of them, they just got one from Europe, and he's from Quebec. He just signed a 1-year contract. Defenseman. I don't know, but I mean, the Panthers are still. They got a tough schedule, and if they get players back, John, I don't know if they are though. I mean, they're going to get Tkachuk back for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But what about Jones and that's 2 big losses, Barkov and Jones.
Sounds like they'll get Jones back, but I don't know about Barkov.
And Jones, is he going to play before the Olympics?
I would anticipate that.
Yeah.
Like it'd be hard to go into that cold without playing for the last month. So as a Canadian, I'm hopeful.
A lot of injuries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, what was your take on what Stan did with his goaltending?
Well, I think they just had to do something. They just felt that, a lot of pressure on the goaltender there. I think it's been tough on the goaltenders. When you play an offensive style, it's not easy for a goaltender, and they're a team that can really play offense. The goalie does have some nights where you gotta make that save at the right time, and I don't know now. They got they got all kinds of goalies they're trying out now. They're trying some new guy in Ingram, and then they got some. They apparently they got a new goalie in their minor league chain that's young out of the East. Who knows? But I think if you're not satisfied with your goalies, um, the late and a long time ago, Jack Adams, he had a theory. He said, if you want to find a good goalie, you got to keep trying till you get one. and, maybe, and no, but maybe that's what he had a lot of goalies. Adams in his day, all kinds of goalies, but I don't know where they got them. No, but goaltending is a big factor coming up to the time in the season where you better and I think it's hard now. It's so hard to get that one guy that's so steady. And then if you don't have a backup goalie now, and the backup goalie to me has a tough chore because he's generally going in on a back-to-back. He could be going in on if a team has a back-to-back, they'll most likely if the number one guy's rested, he's going to play the first of the back-to-back. And then the alternate goalie is going to get the away game, and it could be against a tough team, and it's tough. I mean, if you got to have to although I'm often wondering if a goalie if you have a goalie that is he going to be able to go in and play another game the next night? A lot of it would depend on the game.
Right. But I know. Hey, I got a remedy for that. Go get two veteran guys, both future Hall of Famers, and alternate them, and hope they get along.
Yeah.
I mean, when you think about it, Hall and Plant, it's your turn tonight, pal. That made your life easy, Scotty.
Yeah. Oh no, I still know that as a coach to have a guy like Glenn Hall, and then later on having Jacques to help out, but. Glenn carried the St. Louis Blues. He was so. I mean, I think of all the goalies that they're so hard to rate because a lot of the goalies have different defense cores. You can't rate them all the same, and I mean sometimes the defense core is a lot more adapted to playing defense than some others. But it's the most important position for sure.
Still remember when Canadians got Denny Herron from Pittsburgh thinking he was going to be the answer.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you don't have a goalie, I've been very lucky. I mean, I know in Detroit until we got Mike Vernon, and then we ended up getting, winning those 3 cups with 3 different goalies too.
Yeah.
But Chris Osgood came through one year, and then Dominic was outstanding. I mean, we're down against Colorado 3-2. He goes into Colorado and shuts them out twice now in Game 6 and 7. So the goaltenders, Tommy Barrasso won a series for us against Chicago by outplaying their goaltender, and he was good too, Eddie Belfour. So I mean, goaltending can swing the whole darn series around, and I go back to our friend in the Lake Ken Dryden. Never got really for me because he's on a team that has a lot of great players. He never got his record. Will be hard to ever come close to. 6, 7 seasons, 6 cups. It's amazing.
And he made the saves at the right time, just like what Edmonton's trying to accomplish. Connor Unger is the guy in the Bakersfield organization right now, called up from the ECHL, making a nice splash.
There's another
Matt Tompkins. Matt Tompkins play for Canada?
No. There's another goalie they brought out of the East Coast League. And he's playing now. If you looked it up,
that was Unger. Was playing. No,
Unger. Yeah, Unger.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
What's his record? I mean, he's
5-0,
and he's out of the East Coast League.
Yeah,
but goalies come out of the East Coast League.
Don't tell that to Daren. Daren's going to try to get a job in the East Coast League because he still thinks he can play.
Well,
all I need is a shot, Scotty.
Where the goalie that won for Vegas last night? Where did he come from?
He's in the American Hockey League right now. Swede, second-round pick, Carl Lindbaum. Right there, the same sort of style of Dustin Wolf, smaller guy, but reads the play really well. That's back-to-back wins for him, separated by a month and a half, but really good prospect.
So, see, you got to try them all.
Yeah. Would you give me a shot, Scotty? I'm about this. I'm a little older than Glenn was when you brought him out.
Well, your size would be okay. That's the number one. Number one qualification. How big is he?
I'm going to take that. Scotty, thanks for this. Great reminiscing with you. Okay. All the best, and can't wait to see you talk about it again. Oh, my dogs are barking.
Okay, bye for now.
See you, Scotty.
Thanks.
With the NHL app, you can listen to every NHL game right from your phone. And with home and away broadcast feeds, you choose your way to listen.
And he scores!
Whether you're at work, at the gym, or stuck in traffic, the NHL app puts you right in the action all season long. Every team, every game, everywhere you go. Download the NHL app and never miss a moment.
Never did get to my Lindy Ruff question.
You didn't?
No.
His memory is better now than me in my prime. I have no idea when that was.
I tell you what,
I had to have a best moment.
When he brought up Robbie Irons' name.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you know how many minutes?
I've never heard of Robbie Irons.
Okay. Do you know how many minutes Robbie Irons played for the St. Louis Blues? How many minutes? Not games. How many minutes?
No clue. I've never heard of Robbie Irons.
3 minutes. and Scotty's remembering his name.
And he took a fall.
Yeah, Doug Harvey. Only
Doug
Harvey.
What do you think that conversation was like? Doug skating by, going, "Hey,
hey kid,
yeah, you're gonna take a fall."
Well, remember, Doug Harvey would have been the head coach of the American League team, or the Central League team, rather, the Kansas City Blues, that Robbie Irons was playing on for most of the year. So,
hey, let's give our buddy Kelly Taylor a plug. Great comedian out of Prince Albert.
Oh yes,
and he does some outstanding work and shows up and supports the Boys and Girls Club tournament in Prince Edward Island every summer. And he has a great act when it comes to Glen Hall, and I just want to acknowledge the process that Kelly puts out. That Glenn played 502 straight games, and he's like, imagine being Glenn Hall's backup during that time. And he's like, the coach comes to you and says, "You're going in." And he's like, "I haven't worn skates for 3 years," because Glenn's played every game. So Kelly Taylor, we love you, man. What a great performance that he puts on. Kelly, a former backup goaltender, so he could speak.
All
to that.
Shoresy team.
All right. Well, Oscar Sundqvist.
Really?
Great hair.
What about teeth? What are his teeth like?
His teeth are okay.
Well, no, you can't have good teeth.
They're okay. I'm gonna put him. Sean Couturier.
Oh, good one. Yeah.
All right.
I like that one.
Mackenzie Blackwood.
See, I'm not sure if Mackenzie walked in the room, I would see what Mackenzie Blackwood looked like.
How about the Jackeye brothers?
Oh, yeah. Florian and Arbor, yeah. That would be good.
Brent Burns.
Well, Brett Burns for sure. He's Brett Burns, Chris and Brandon Tanev, and obviously Tyler Bertuzzi are their mainstays on the All Shoresy.
Okay. Here's one that I hadn't thought of, but my twin brother Derek has sent this in. Alex Ovechkin.
Nah, no. Teeth are too good.
Really?
Yeah, I think so.
He was on the fringe for me too, but the hair and the different looks.
Yeah, no, you got it. It's the whole package. You got to look like Terry Ryan. You got to look, and you know as well as I do what Terry looks like when he takes his glasses off and takes his teeth out.
Mm-hmm.
That's part of the being the all. And of course, Terry is a performer on Shoresy. So
gives them a bit of an advantage, doesn't it?
No, yeah, I know, but that's the standard by which we have to judge. So your list is okay. You did a little bit of work. That's good, but the 4 names.
I got some great help from my bro on this one too.
Okay, good. Well,
he was standing by the halfway tree with a flat tire between Brandon and Winnipeg.
The 3/4 tree. The 3/4 tree.
That's our team Shorzy.
Okay. I like it. I'm hoping that, maybe that, next year they'll need a podcast for Shorzy, and they'll phone us and say, will you do a podcast for the
I love Alec Martinez talking about playing the Shorzy cast in the charity game.
Yeah.
Good old Marty. Hey, the Golden Knights are coming, man. 1-4 in a row.
By the way, so are the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Yeah.
They are playing well. They're 12-2-2 in their last 16 games.
And guess who plays this week for the first time this year? In a rather anticipated game.
Now, do you have to call him Mitchell or Mitch? Because every time no, but in Toronto, he became Mitchell.
Well, he's not Mitchell here. And he's enjoying life.
Good. He's playing well.
Yeah.
He's playing well. Yeah.
He's right on.
Your goaltending is a bit of a merry-go-round, but
ham and egg it. Worked in 2023. Kind of like what we do here, to ham and egg it.
Oh no, this is professional broadcasting.
I'll be the ham.
No, and of course there's a difference between a chicken and an egg in ham and eggs, right?
What?
Oh yeah. If you want to talk about commitment, the difference is in ham and eggs. The chicken's involved. The pig's committed.
Well done. That hooked me in big time. You couldn't tell, could you? Huh?
Yeah.
Thanks to Scotty Bowman. Thanks for you for listening. Again, catch our podcast, subscribe, and make sure that you are subscribed so you don't miss anything like the great Scotty Bowman jumping on 100% Hockey with Millard and Shannon.